Hello and welcome to part two of reading and writing files in Python. What we're going to be covering in this video is how you can go ahead and write data to a file in Python and how you can go ahead and read data from a file in Python. So you use the open function in Python to open a file. So I've highlighted it right here. Uh, the open function creates a file object and associates it with the file on the disk. There are three modes in which the file can be opened. The mode that we're going to be using for this program is the write or W mode, which opens a file for writing. If the file already exists, it'll erase its contents. If it does not exist, it'll go ahead and create the file. The other two modes are the R or the read mode. What that does is opens a file for reading only. The file cannot be changed or written to in that mode. And then there's the append or A mode where you open a file to be written to. All data written to the file will be appended to its end. If the file does not exist, the append mode will create the file. And we will be looking at examples of those momentarily. So the open function, like I mentioned, causes the files to be created and opens it for writing. It also creates a file object in memory and assigns that object to the output file variable. So this is our output file variable. Once you have opened a file, you can use the file object's methods to perform operations on the file. File objects have a method named write that can be used to write data to a file. So in these next three statements in this program, we're going to go ahead and use that write method to write data to the out file, which will write it to our philosophers.txt file on disk. What we're writing is the name of a philosopher, and then we have the escape sequence for the new line. So basically what that'll do is that'll write each one of the philosophers on a new line in our text file that gets created. And then finally, once a program is finished working with the file, it should close the file. Closing a file disconnects the program from the file. In some systems, failure to close an output file can cause a loss of data. This happens because the data that is written to a file is first written to a buffer, which is a small holding section in memory. When the buffer is full, the system writes the buffer's contents to the file. This technique increases the system's performance because writing data to memory is faster than writing it to a disk. The process of closing an output file forces any unsaved data that remains in the buffer to be written to the file. And then the final statement in this file is we're just letting the user know that the write operation has completed successfully. So you'll always want to include a print statement like that when you're writing data to your files, and you must for any assignments that you will be working on. So I will go ahead and run this module. So what happens, the data has been written to my philosophers.txt file. So since we did not specify a path to the text file, we need to determine where that file has been saved. And where that file has been saved is your current working directory. One way you can determine that is just by typing in import OS and hit enter in the shell that was opened up. And then after that, you can just go in. What we're doing is we're importing the OS module that Python has, and it has various commands that allow you to work with the operating system that you're currently using. And then I'll go ahead and type in our git cwd, and what that command does is retrieves the current working directory. So if I go ahead and hit enter, it's CIS 156 module 8. So if I go into my file system, click on module 8, click on my philosophers.txt file, and we see each one of the philosophers has been added to a new line in that file. So if you wanted to go ahead and actually write the file to a separate area on your disk, you can go ahead and specify a path. So what we're doing here is I just have a raw string, and within that raw string, I'm specifying a path that I want this file written to. So we will go ahead and run this program and run the module. And what happens is we actually get an error. And the reason why we got that error is Python will create the file, but if the directory structure does not exist, it will not create that directory structure. So in order to write to that directory structure, that structure must be basically created before we can actually go ahead and write a file to it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and open up a new file, FilesPart2. And what we've done here is we've actually imported our OS module, and there's a make ders command. And basically what that does is that'll go ahead and actually make those directories on our operating system. And what I'm going to do is currently the reason why we have is the double slashes is because we didn't specify it as a raw string. I'm just going to go ahead and change it to a raw string so we don't need to include the double slashes. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing down below. Go ahead and delete those. What we're doing right now is we're specifying the escape character for the backward slash, but if we use a raw string, we do not have to do that. So we will go ahead and run this program now, run the module, click on OK, and data was written to our philosophers.txt file. If we go out, I have 156 examples, philosophers, files, and our philosophers.txt file that has the same text file in it. So let me just go ahead and I'm going to delete that directory, structure out. And what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and look at a program where we're actually going to be reading that data from our philosophers.txt file. So let me just go into my module again and click on module 8, and I will open up my file read program. So if a file has been open for reading, you use the R mode. You can use the file object's read method to read its entire contents into memory. When you call the read method, it returns the file's contents as a string. So this first statement, what that does is it opens the philosophers.txt file for reading using the R mode. In the next line down below, what this does is it calls the infile.read method to read the file's contents. The file contents are then read into memory as a string, and they're assigned to the file contents variable. So what this does is it reads all the contents of the file and assigns it to the file underscore contents variable. And then we're going to go ahead and close the file. And then finally, we're going to go ahead and print the data that was read into memory. So we will go ahead and click on Run Mode. And what it does is it goes ahead and it actually reads all the information from that file and prints it out. So although the read method allows you to easily read the entire contents of a file with one statement, Many programs need to read and process the items that are stored in a file one at a time. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a program that actually does that. So in Python, you can use the readLine method to read a line from a file. A line is simply just a string of characters that are terminated with our escape sequence \n. The method returns the line as a string, including the new line escape character. So in this model, what we've done is we've opened up our philosophers.txt file in read mode. Then what we did in the next 3 lines is we just read the first line, the second line, and the third line, and we've saved those in various string variables. We've closed the in file, and then what we're going to do is we're going to print the data that was read into memory. So if I go ahead and click on my run mode, what that does is it displays a blank line after each line in the output. This is because each item that is read from the file ends with a new line character. Later, we're going to learn how to remove the new line character. So if we go back into our file here really quick, on this line right here, again, all we're doing is we're opening the philosophers.txt file for reading using R mode. It also creates a file object and assigns the object to the in-file variable. When a file is open for reading, a special value known as a read position is internally maintained for that file. A file's read position marks the location of the next item that will be read from the file. Initially, the read position is set to the beginning of the file. So what happens is the read position gets set to the first line in the file. Once that line is read, that read position gets moved to the second line, so on and so forth until the lines are read in the file. So that is how you go ahead and read line by line from a file. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video, and in the next video, what we're going to be going through is we're going to be going through how you can write data that has been entered by the user to a file, and then a way that you can go ahead and strip the new line from a string, and then we're going to go ahead and look at pending data to an existing file. So I will talk to you in a few minutes.